Hey friends and everyone, welcome back to Netcode-Hub channel. In today's video, I am going to introduce you to something that could completely change how you build your .NET applications, which is vertical slice architecture. Before we dive into this, let's first understand what architecture is. Simply put, architecture is a software development blueprint of your application. It defines how different parts of your applications are organized, interact, and work together to achieve its purpose. So in any application that you see, it follows a specific architecture. Then what are some of the architectures that we know? I've already made a video on clean architecture, and today we are talking about vertical slice architecture. So maybe if you want to also get to know that is a clean architecture, then check the video description. I'll put the link in there. So now that you know what architecture is, then let's now hop into vertical slice architecture. This architecture is a beginner-friendly. Take note, it is a beginner-friendly way to keep your code clean, maintainable, and focus on your actual features. Now, I have made two images here, one for clean architecture and one for vertical slice architecture. These images here will help you understand what we are going to talk about. So let me show you. So what you see on the screen, it is a clean architecture. You can see that with clean architecture, your code are organized in layers. So you can have your presentation layer, you're going to have your application layer, you can have your domain, and then you have your infrastructure, right? Now, that is how your application or your code should be arranged in clean architecture. But let's look at vertical slice architecture. You can see that with the vertical slice architecture, it does follow the same organization. It has the presentation, the application, the domain, and now the data access, which is the infrastructure. But with this, we have featured A and now featured B, meaning that under each feature, we can have this organization. So instead of you organizing your whole code base in 4 sub layers, presentation, application, domain, and infrastructure, with the vertical slice, each feature is going to have these 4. So here with the vertical slice, we are organizing code based on the feature. Let's pick a product, for instance. Let's say you want to create an e-commerce and you want to create a CRUD for product. Here under product, we're going to have access to create product, update product, read product, delete product, get our product, get product by ID, isn't it? Now, each I have mentioned is a feature. Now, under each feature, you're going to have presentation, you're going to have application, you're going to have domain, you're going to have data access. I believe you've gotten the concept here. So bear in mind that when you talk about clean architecture, it organizes code based on layers. But with vertical slice architecture, it organizes code based on features. So now that you have understood what vertical slice architecture is, let's actually see a practical example of this architecture. I'm going to create a project which is going to be in .NET 9. So you can also follow same, launch your Visual Studio, and this is going to be a web API, and let's create it. After we are done creating our project, we need to install some packages such as the Mapstar, the Mediator, because you're going to follow the CQRS pattern, okay, in this vertical slice architecture. And we want to implement a database with SQLite. So let's get these packages installed. So these are the packages that we need to install. We need an Mapster for mapping. We need a mediator for implementing CQRS. We need Scalar for API documentation. We need EF call and also tools for migration. And then we need an SQLite for our database. All right, so let's install these packages. And the project is in .NET 9, and I believe you are aware of that. So, with clean architecture, you'd have to then go in and add a lot of C# class library. But with the vertical slice architecture, we do not need to add these libraries. Well, you can decide to add them. But for now, we want to make this simple because it is beginner friendly. So we don't want to complicate things. Let's make it simple as it is. Now, within this, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a folder. So what you saw in the picture, which contains the data, assets, the presentation, the infrastructure, we're going to bring them here, okay? But under each feature, they're going to have same. Now, let me create a folder with this, and this folder is going to cater for our domain. That's our business. So let's do that. So when you look at our business, that is our domain in here, we have in our product and our category. In that we have the following properties, specify, and the each. We are establishing relationship, and I've already made a video. If you want to understand detailedly of one-to-one, one-to-many, and now many-to-many, how you can configure them using navigations property in here. I've already made a video on that. So check the video description. I'll put the link in there. You can go and learn more about that. But see, from here, we are establishing one-to-many or many-to-one relationship between our product and our category models. Okay. So that is our domain that we have in here. Now, domain here is going to be used by all the features. Okay, so it's better that we put it in a domain folder. Okay, now the next thing that we're going to be doing here is we're going to create our DB context and register database connection and stuff. So let's do that. So we have our DB context created, and then we have our data table specified. Great. Let's go and register this in our program.cs file. So from this, we have registered database connection, and instead of specifying our connection string in the app settings, well, I can pass it straight here. But it is recommended that you put it in the app settings in here. So I think that is the best. That is the best way. So let's follow that. So now that we are good, we have our connection string specified in the app settings. We have our connection name, and that is what you want to grab. That is the file that you want to create as a database SQLite database file. And when you go to our program, you can see that here we are calling this connection section here. So we can get the value and use that to configure our SQLite. Good. So now that we have this, we need to add migration because we have done all the necessary things that we need in order for migration to work. So we can rebuild this project and then add migration. So we have migration also performed, and when you check our solution, we then have the database, which is an SQLite file attached to our setup. Now, the reason why I created the infrastructure folder is it doesn't only contain the AppDB context. In case you want to create a repository for your data access, we can actually put it in here, okay, or any related file which is responsible for data access, you can pass it on here. But since we're going to build a simple application, we can go in there and directly use the AppDB context in a handler, which is from the CQRS. So once that we have this created, let's go in there and create our feature. Now, when creating the feature, there are a lot of things or some of the files which will be needful in all the features, which is common file, which will be shared. Example is a response type. You know, from the response type here, I normally use a model to handle the response, and I do call it at service response. Now, when creating product, when updating product, when deleting product, we're going to be using this service response. So this file, this service response here, is going to be used by 3 features. So since it's going to be shared, I can create a shared folder and now organize it nicely here, then put the file here. So let's do that. So that is my service response. It has only 2 properties, success and also message. In case we do have any message after operation is being performed, then we can pass it on here. Also, you know, when handling exceptions globally, you do not need to specify that in the feature, although you can create exception for each feature. But for global exception handler must come out of the featured folder. Okay, so this cuts across, so we can also create one, although this is not actually part of what I want to teach today. But well, as soon as we have our service, it means we might have an issue, and when we have an issue, we want to have a better way of handling that. So well, let's also add this. So I'm going to add a folder here and I'll name it as exceptions. Now with this exception, I'm going to create a global exception handler to handle any unhandled exception. So you can see from here that we have to inherit from this IException handler, and now this handler or this method get executed as soon as an error or exception is thrown. So in that you want to get the content type, or you want to set the content type as application/JSON. Aside from that, you want to specify the status code, and here I am specifying mine to internal server error, but you can do better than this. You can also specify the problem details. That is the best way of handling each error. I did not create this problem detail. It's rather coming from the ASP.NET Core .mvc. and in that we have these properties that you can set values to each. Aside from that, we need to write it as JSON async because this is a model. So in order for us to pass it on, we need to convert into JSON, and this method is going to do that. We want to return true to tell this interface that yes, we have handled this issue. And after this, we need to go and register this exception handler in our middleware pipeline, register as a service, and then we map it in the middleware pipeline. So when you check here, we add the service and then we use or you map it over here in the middleware pipeline. Okay, so that is a way to handle this exception. Let's say handle and unhandled exception to globally. Okay, so any exception at all that would come from our system is going to be handled in case we do not handle that internally. It's going to be handled here. Okay, so this is the time for us to create our features. So let's first create a folder, a big folder, and we're going to name this as feature. In there, we're going to create a product and a category, and within that, we're going to create a separate feature for each. When we talk about product, we have the create, we have the read, we have update, get, and get by ID. So you can see that here we are having our features here. Now these are the use case. We want to create product, you want to delete product, you want to get a product and get by ID, and also we want to update it. When you go to category, we want to create category. So under each folder, we're going to put everything that is required in order for you to create product. You see, we're going to put from our DTOs to our endpoint. Let's say endpoint, everything should be in that. So when you pick the create product folder or that feature, it has everything necessary or required for that feature to work. I believe you're now getting the concept of vertical slice architecture, isn't it? So now let's go in and now do the magic stuff. So in our create product, as we one that we're going to start with, we need to create a request, and that request is just a DTO. Okay, so we need to create a request to be used, right? So let's do that first. So in our create product request, we need name, price, and category. When you check our product model, we have these properties. You can add more, and before you create product, you need to provide these 3 properties. So we need this as a request. Now that we have this request created, we need to create a command, because when you look at implementing CQRS, we have the command, we have the query. Now create, update, delete, these are commands. Get is a query. So since this is create, it should be a command. I've already made a video on how you can implement CQRS, so I think I'll put also in the video description. Well, you have a lot of videos to watch if you don't understand all that I've mentioned. Yes, but I have made them simple so you can understand it easily. All right, so let's see by creating our command here, which is create product command. So you can see from our request or our command that here we need to pass in our create product request. Let's say this is our payload, and in here we want to return this. So this is our service response, and that is the shared class or shared record that we created. So we have our payload, we have our return type. The next thing to do here is to go in and create our handler, which is going to handle this. So you can see when we check our implementation or the way that we are handling our command, you see this is very simple, right? You see from this that we are inheriting from this interface, which is the command handler. And we in that we need to provide the create product command, which is the payload. This is the payload because this contains the request. Aside from that, we need to provide our response type. We want to return service response at the end. We implement the interface and then we have this generated. We inject our DB context so we can have access to our database. And in there, you can see we want to map it because here we have create product request. And now the entity or the domain is product. In order for us to add it, we need to map it. And here we are using Mapster. That is the simplest way of mapping. You see, you do not need to configure anything as what we have been doing using AutoMapper. Just a line. You can just append.adapt, then specify the model that you want to adapt to. That's the destination, which is a product. And we add it, we save it, and I will return service response. So here you can see we have cancellation token, so we can go in and specify it or add this forward this cancellation token to the saved changes. Okay, so you can see from here we've started from our DTO to our handler. We have all the stuff needful for this to get work, and this feature here is going to handle the create product successfully. So if I execute this in my endpoint, this is going to work. So with our endpoint, to make this work, we can decide to use controller or you can decide to use Minima API. Which one do you think we should use? I believe you know how to create controller, isn't it? Yes. So today I'm going to show you how you can also add Minima endpoint. So let's go. Now this is what I'm going to be doing. I want to add all the endpoints for this product here because I'm going to map the group, and in that the group I can have the various routes. So in this product I'm going to have the base, which is going to be the product endpoint here. So you can see from here we have created our endpoint, which is a static class, and in this we creating an endpoint. It's going to return our endpoint conversion builder, and in there we want to inject our endpoint route builder. We create our group, which is a product group, because this endpoint is going to cater for only product. That is why when you check from the Solution Explorer, it is in the root folder of the product. The product here, that's where we have this product endpoint. So from our category 2, we need to also create our category endpoint. Then here, since we have worked with create product feature, we map the group as product for all, and we have our create. In here, it takes in a request, which is the create product request, which takes in the instance of the product detail that we created. Then in here, we pass in the iSender interface. Now this interface is coming from the mediator, and that is where we can send this command to the handler. So we do send a command over here by providing the parameter over here as a create command. We pass in this because this takes in a record of create product request, and that is what we have over there. And it's going to return a service response. If you remember that, that's a return type of this handler. Then we check if it's success. We want to return OK response. In case it isn't, then we should return a bad request. You can decide to also return problem, which also return iResource. But with this resource type, we must specify all that we did in a global exception handler: the title, the instance, the details, and all these properties. You must provide values to some of them. But well, since we have our response type over here, we can pass on to the bad request, and that is all. Once you have this done, let's grab this product endpoint. Let's go and map it. So go to your program.cs file, and in here, let's do app.map product endpoint, and that is it. Now here we need to also map our scalar. So let's include the namespace ASP.NET call. Then from also the mapping, we say app.map scalar API reference. Now, in order for us to run directly in the browser, go to the properties folder, line settings, set this to true. Then let's specify the launch URL. And let's say this is from Scalar, then v1. This will open the API doc directly in the browser when we run it. Okay. Now we are going to, so you can see that we are done creating our create product feature. We have only one feature created, and that's a create product. Now let's run this and check this out. We are having an issue here because we forgot to register our mediator. So I think that could be the issue. Let's do that. Yeah. Now you can see from here, we have our API ready, as you can see from this, and we have our create product. Have you seen this? So this tells you that, well, this feature is ready. Now we can go to test this request. Then this our endpoint, product, and then create. Now I want to check here. We can specify the body over here, the category, and our price. But since we haven't created a category, we're going to have a constraint, an exception, which is a foreign key constraint. Now, with this foreign key constraint, this is going to be handled by the global exception handler that we created, which is using this problem detailed model coming from the ASP.NET called MVC. Now, let's put in something here as product 1. That's going to be the name. Now for the price, we can maintain that or add. Then category ID is 1, which does not actually exist. But well, let's give it a try. So click on send, and we must have an issue, as I told earlier on, and this should be handled by the problem detail. There's an issue, foreign key constraints. I know that. You see? Then click on continue, and I'll check it out. So we are having the type, yes, an internal error. We're having the title. We're having the status code. So you can add more. This is just to show you how you can handle that. Okay. This is a detailed internal error, and here we have the error details here. And an error occurred while saving the entity changes, and see the inner exception for detail. So that is and this is the instance product and then create. Okay. So this is working, isn't it? Great. So we have one feature ready. let's go and add the next one, which is an update, delete, get by ID, and I get all. So let's handle after we are done with the create. Let's do the other one, which is also a request, a command, which is going to be the update. So when you check the handler for this update product, you see it is the same thing. We first adapt the model, or we convert the model to the product. Then we want to update that and save changes and return. So you see it is the same thread, right? We're doing the same thing. Good. So now that we are done with the handler, we need to go and create our endpoint. So we go to our map group endpoint, which is product endpoint, and I'll map this endpoint here. So with this, we don't need to waste time at all. We can just grab this. Since we have the group mapped already, it is a matter of changing this to put. And then instead of the create, it's going to be an update. Then here, instead of using product request, this should be update product request, isn't it? It is using the same sender interface. Then here, we're going to send this. So update product command. That's what we want to send, passing this update. And the same thing. So when we save this, run this, let's say. So we have this update, right? Now, since we haven't added any record, we cannot update. So while we come back to this again, let's go and handle delete. So when you check our delete product command, we pass in only the ID, because that is what we need. We need to provide the product ID in order for us to delete it. So here we don't need to specify any request. That is only ID is what we need. But you can also create a model or a D2O as a request and specify only this ID. You can do that. But well, all the time you want to implement the simple one. So you can see in the handler here, we want to remove the product, and this is quite simple steps, isn't it? And then we need to return the service response as usual. Okay, these two, we need to go and map this. So let's do that in the product endpoint. And we can grab same thing from here, which is delete. Now this delete takes in an ID, which is the product ID. So let's specify the request. We don't have any request, so that request here is going to be and this ID. Now here we need to specify the delete command. This delete command takes in a parameter of integer, which is an ID, and then we do the same. Make sure you change this to delete. Now is the time for us to write our queries. So we are done with the commands. Now let's go and write our queries, which is going to be the get product by ID and our get product. So let's complete these features. Get product by ID and our get product or get our product need a specific response, right? Which is get product response. So let's go and create that. You know, when you check each feature, we having its own request. Now this is going to be a response because it's coming from the database and you want to receive that. So since you're going to be using that for both product and by ID, you can actually put it in here somewhere in the shed. But well, let's create each response for each feature. So with the get product by ID, let's add a class here. So get product. This is get product response. And let's go to the product. We can grab all these and paste it here. You see, so we have this. Now, in order for this, because we're going to be using the same thing, so we can drag this from this get product and now put it in this product. That is a root. So it can be used by these two features, get product. Maybe you can decide to use product name or category name because you have an ID here already to make our D2O simple, excluding all relationships. Let's get rid of this. And now let's use property to handle, that is a category name. Okay, so now we have this. We have our get product response. We can go to our get product by ID query and pass it in here as a return type. Let's go and create our handler. So you can see from here that we are specifying, we want to find by ID, and we specify our ID over here from the request. Then we want to return, by return this, the method here is returning get product response, and now we are having product domain from the database. So we need to adapt it, map it, and that's what we are mapping here. But if you compare the two classes, check here. If I check or if I pick the definition for get product response, you see it has all these and has what category name. But I go and check for the product, it doesn't have category name over there. So it means when it is mapping, that category name will be left out. How do we configure that? In order for us to map it, Mapstars will provide a configuration that we can work with. So in that, we can also put that configuration here because it's going to be used by the get product by ID and also get our product. So let's put it in the root of this product. So when you have a look at this configuration that we are creating, we have only one property left out that we need to configure manually. So we're doing that anytime that you want to get product response, and if it is coming from this product, you want to make sure that the category name, which is an external or unknown property in the get response, we want to map it from here. This product has a category navigation. You want to get into that and with the name assigned to this category name. That is what we're doing. Now, in order for this to work, we need to go to our handler. And now here, instead of finding this, we need to include the category. If we do not include category, it's not going to work. Okay. And in here, we need to use first or default. So we need to do this. We need to use first or default and I'll map the ID over there, include the category. When we do that, then it means that when we get a model or record out of the table or the database as a product, it's going to include the category, and we can go on and assign the category name by this category name property in this get product response. After we are done creating this, let's grab our product mapping, get product mapping config, then go to our program.cs file and let's register that. So we need to use type adapter config.global settings, and we're going to scan this, and I'll make sure all the configurations that we've done, it gets applied. So it's going to make it work with the configuration that we have specified here. Okay, that is get by ID. So maybe we are done with that. So when we check our endpoint from get products by ID endpoint, we have it set up there. Now we have last part left, that is get all product. So let's also handle that. So with this get product, see, we want to return a list of this model. So we use IEnumerable. It could be list, it could be collection. Okay, so we are using IEnumerable. This should be a record. Let's go and implement this in the handler. Yeah, so you see that with just 2 lines of code, we are able to get our product list, adapt it into a enumerable of get product response, and I return it. So now that we are good, we can go and add this to the endpoint. So we have our delete, create, update, delete. We need to add get by ID. So we can grab this, paste it for the get by ID, and this should be map get. So maybe we can specify this as single text and ID. And now instead of this, we can say get product by ID query. And here, this won't be success. The response here is going to be an object of get product response. So with that, when you check this, it's going to return get product response. So we can check if it is not now. Let's copy this and make another. And here, that is all. You want to get our product. It takes in no parameter. And here we need to get our product. And that is all. So with this, we don't want to return bad requests. We can return not found. And this will be null, so we don't need to pass that not found. Okay. So we are done with our feature for create, update, delete. That is a CRAD. Let's test it out. Yet still, we cannot add product because we haven't added category. Okay, you see that? So let's go and create, that's a create category feature. Let's do that so we can add this. Yeah, so we have everything put in place. Yet we can try this out, and this should return null. Okay. Let's go and create this feature for the category. So it's quite similar to what we're doing or what we did in the create product. So you can see from this, we are doing everything in a single file. That tells you how good vertical slice layer is. You can see from the previous one, we created a separate class for each, but with this, I decided to handle everything in a class. We having our request, we having our command, we having our handler, and that is all. So what I need to do here is to go and add our endpoint. So let's create an endpoint in the category. Now with this category endpoint, I can go to the product endpoint and I'll grab that. So maybe I can grab this up to this one. Category endpoint. This should be static class. And that is map category endpoint. And this should return category endpoints. Oh, this should be group instead. And this group should replace this. We should have of category. And then map post create instead of product, that is category. Then instead of the create product command, this should be create category command. Let's pass the subjects. Yes. And that is all. So let's close this. And let's go and map this category endpoint so we can add. Now it is the same thing as we've done here. So your assignment is completed. So you can create CRAD for the category. I've done with the create. So you continue with the update, delete, get by ID, and now get all. Okay, so let's go and map this in the program as we did for this endpoint. We do the same for category. So map category endpoint. endpoints. Let's save that. Category endpoint, map category endpoint. Okay. Save this and let's make sure. Okay. Again, this should work. All right. Let's give it a run. Okay, so you can see we have the category right here that is to create. This is what we have been waiting for to test. So let's say this is category. Okay, so let me give it any name at all. That's electronics. And here I'm going to click on send. Let's wait and see whether you have the response of service response. Here we have it saved. So we have it as 1. That's 90. Let's create product. So that is the price. And when you check here, category ID is 1. So click on and you can see it has been saved. Go to get all. Now we have it. So here we are having category ID, category name as null. Why? That is get all. Let's see get by ID. That is 1. Get it. But you see from the category we have the category name as electronics. Because when you check the handler, we did not include category, right? And that was the issue. So now when you run this again, this should work now. Auto refresh is not working. It should hard reload it, but I'm not sure it did that. I'm having same. Okay. Let me reload that manually. And now we have it. So you can see working with vertical slice architecture is quite simple and fun as well. Because when you check the code that we have written now, you can see that reading is quite simple. You go to the features folder, we have category, we have product. In the product, these are the features: create, product, read, update, and etc. When you go to category, we have same. And within each, if I go to create product, I have the command, I have the handler, I have the request. So I don't have the request in a separate model or in a separate library or layer. And having the infrastructure in a separate also layer, I have all here. In case I want to extract this handler, getting access to database, I can put it in infrastructure here. Then with that repo, I can inject it and I'll use it. Quite simple and fun to use. All right, so that is it. Now, we did not complete the category, and I believe based on where we've come so far, you can do that. You can complete it, isn't it? So that is it for this video. We've seen how to implement vertical slice architecture in our API by performing CRUD for both product and also category, although we couldn't finish it, but I believe you're going to complete that to make it complete. Okay, so you've learned something here. If you did so, then do not forget to hit on the like button to actually show your support, and also subscribe to this if you haven't done that, because you're missing a lot from this channel. Thank you, and I'm going to catch up again. Till then, take care.